Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting with Cameron Selby, and we've been doing a lot of videos for this weekend. We're going to be doing this video. This is a breakdown of the Sunday games. We're going to do both of the showdown slates between the Rams and Eagles, and then also the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, the game I am by far most looking forward to on the weekend because that is going to just be the best game. So kind of talking about it, though, we did also do a breakdown for the main slate, which is all 4 games, and then we did both of the Saturday games already, so those games are out if you haven't seen them yet, or if they haven't been played yet, you should go watch those to make sure that you can get in your own lineups for those games. But
yeah, and then again, when we broke down the first one, not really much weather impacting either game, so it wasn't that big of a deal, kind of a moot point. On the Sunday, because the cold fronts are coming in and all that good stuff, it's worth noting that the weather could definitely impact this slate. So,
right.
It is a wait and see. We are still recording this on Wednesday, but the Philly game, upper 30s, light breeze, but could be some showers depending on just what directions these winds are going and what have you. And then the Baltimore-Buffalo game, which is a big deal because it's a 51-point total right now. Supposed to be the worst cold weather game of the weekend. It's already right now projecting to be in the teens during the game time. On top of that, there could be some high winds, possible rain/snow.
Right.
So really have to take a look at that. Maybe bet the under if you have it right now. I know when we did our breakdowns, we'll talk about scores and what have you as well. But just keep those things in mind as you're doing builds.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's get into the first game of the day. I don't know what time it's at. Is it 3? Is it a 1 o'clock game or 2 o'clock game?
Central time.
Okay. So we'll be hopping into this game here. The Eagles and the Rams. The Rams are the underdogs by 6.5, and they are. What's the total on this game?
It's a 44-point total. Right.
44-point total. Okay. So talking about the Rams side of it, we're going to talk about the receivers first. You have to have Puka Nacua as your number 1 guy.
He's really the only
Cooper
Kupp
guy
that's getting consistent workload.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how their offense works. It's so weird. I mean, you can even come down here and get Parkinson, Tutu Atwell, Davis Allen, Hunter Long had a catch. Like, everybody down here, but
here's
it's
the
just
thing.
gross.
Tutu played 1 snap last week.
Yeah.
Tyler Johnson was an inactive.
He was out.
Cooper Kupp, he only played 55% of the snaps, but there was a blowout. But he's been getting less than 3 targets a game for the last month or so, and it's been really hard to trust. At least his price is going down to where you can consider him at least.
Right.
But it's tough to get to. Demarcus Robinson,
Cardio.
at least 70% of the snaps, but he's getting cardio essentially. The biggest thing is Tyler Higbee and his status because and we brought this down in the main slate. All that's in first quarter. 5 for 58 on 5 targets, 10.8 fantasy points, and then he went out with a chest injury. He was essentially coughing up blood and had to go to the hospital to get checked out. Sounds like he's good to go and won't really be limited in any way. So I'm not really concerned if he is active in playing I don't know if I can spend up for him. I think you can in a game like this because they just have made a huge priority over the last 2 weeks to make sure that he's involved.
Right, exactly. And talking about, this kind of team, the guys that are getting targets, it's literally just like 4 guys. And Kyron can be included because he's getting more targets than actually anybody not in the top 3. So I think he's probably getting more targets than Cooper also. I mean, he only needs 4.
I mean, yeah, he hasn't been known as a pass catcher, but
the same amount, I guess.
Yeah, he essentially Blake Corum, who has not really been eaten into touches all year. We called that at the very beginning of the year. Is out for the year, and so we were like, Kyron's going to lead the way.
Right.
Well, I said that he might play 95% of the snaps when we were just texting off screen when we were prepping for the showdown, and he hit 87%, but a lot of it had to do with a lot of the second half they didn't have the ball, and on top of that they were up by so much that Ronnie Rivers, here's 7 snaps. Do something with those 3 carries that you're going to have. Kyron, as safe as they come, you see the floor that he has, basically 16 points every week. So him being only under $10,000 is honestly a pretty solid bargain.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to – and you are I don't think that this slate is that hard to play because everybody's pretty reasonably priced. If you watched our other video, this is more like the Kansas City slate where Kansas City and Houston, they had, their highest guys are in the 10,000s. Philly, on the other hand, is two guys that are a little bit more expensive. But if you just look at like the LA side of it, you're comfortable getting to them, especially if you're picking them to win. So we'll have to get into that in a minute. But Kyren is the only running back that we're going to talk about. We just talked about him. Cooper Kupp, 3 targets a game for the last few weeks. Not sure what to do with him, but why not? Tournament, huge tournament play, I guess. And then, like we said, Tyler Higbee. So pretty easy side. Matthew Stafford's. I know you have a stat about Matthew Stafford that you probably want to bring up real quick.
Basically, and I wrote this down when we did our main slate breakdown. But in 6 games as a Ram in the playoffs, he's averaging over 24 fantasy points per game. His worst game was last week against the Minnesota Vikings, and he was playing so well so early that it didn't matter in the second half. Like I said, they barely had the ball, and they didn't need him. He also doesn't have rushing upside, so he's a multi-touchdown kind of guy. And so if he isn't flirting with that 300-yard threshold, which he's basically averaging 300 passing yards a game in his career in the playoffs, which is one of the most all-time. Problem is sometimes he doesn't hit a floor. You see the 3 games prior to that when it was just low-scoring games, 8 points, 7 points, 9 points. Can't really fit him in with this stat, but it just kind of depends on how you see the game script going. But them being a 6-point dog, even if you're not on the side of an upset in this game, that means they're playing from behind. And last time they did play Philly, they're the number 1 defense in football and hard to throw on, and yet he still had 18 fantasy points. I think he hit the 300-yard bonus week 12.
Too far. 243.
Yeah.
Against Philly. So
243, 2 touchdowns.
But he had a rushing touchdown.
Had a rushing touchdown as well. That kind of helped save his day. But 19 fantasy points. So if he can get you over 15, that's kind of what it really comes down to. I think with a lot of builds, it's going to basically be a Stafford versus Kyren.
Yeah.
If you're going to try to afford some of the expensive Philly guys.
I was a liar. He did not have a rushing touchdown. That was a rushing attempt. That's good. Because I didn't expect him to. I was like, really? That's surprising. But yeah, he has had a rushing touchdown all year. Let's go over though and talk about the other side of the ball because it's a little bit more interesting. You have, of course, some of these guys up top, 3 guys above 10,000. Let's get into the wide receiver side of it. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard. I guess Jahan Dotson, sure. But let's look at the Jalen Hurts game log real quick because this is really what tells the story on these pass catchers. He has the floor of throwing the ball 21 times. He has 19 times. That's just not going to get it done for your pass catchers. 14 freaking times. I'm not confident that I don't know how many times he'll throw the ball in this game. Probably around 25, right?
Yeah. He's probably one of the most frustrating fantasy players to fade if you don't like him because of the fact that he could suck or not have production at all, but just get pushed in 1 or 2 times and just return value. We've seen multiple games this year. I know he's had a 3 rushing touchdown game before, but he had a stretch of I think 5 straight games with a rushing touchdown. Or he had 5 rushing touchdowns. Oh yeah.
Don't worry, there's more.
There is a 3 touchdown game in there, but you see the rushing touchdowns that he vultures from Saquon, so he doesn't need a bunch of passing attempts to get there.
Right.
Which is tough when it's like, man, you're not playing well. And last week he had 35 passing yards going late into the 3rd quarter.
Yep.
He had 2 touchdowns, which one was because they fumbled. Green Bay fumbled the kickoff, and they scored on the first drive. He didn't do anything the rest of the way, and then Goddard had an amazing play.
Yeah,
to score, and that was all she wrote for Jalen Hurts. So, is he going to be pushed in? Probably. I mean, I bet you he's even or a goblin to score a rushing touchdown. But just he's going to make a lot of things tougher to fit if you did go that route and then also stacked him with one of the 2 guys.
Yeah, and the first guy you guys talk about is AJ Brown. AJ Brown has been good when honestly, he's been good for his opportunities and everything like that. The problem is he just doesn't have that many opportunities because they're not throwing the ball enough. I'd love to. There we go. 15 opportunities against Washington, 11 against Pittsburgh. He is the main guy.
I don't care how much you're up. Your wide receiver 1 that you're paying $30 million a year should never have only 3 targets in a playoff game. I don't care how ugly it is. Jair Alexander was out. You got 2 fantasy points. That has nothing to do with him. It's just the way they use him, and it's frustrating when you try to invest in a Philly pass catcher, Devontae Smith is also a very talented guy, and he's $2,000 cheaper. A lot easier to organically fit in stuff. But he also has the floors. He started kind of raising it up a little bit. He's had going into the postseason, had 4 touchdowns in the final 4 games of the year. But then he has just only 4 targets. He catches all 4, but 9 fantasy points. That's not going to return value at $8,000
right.
on a showdown slate. So basically, how do you expect Philly to go off? The biggest thing is knowing that Goddard's back. Which another kind of similar to what we just said about Tyler Higbee. They really wanted to get him involved when he came back from IR late in the season. He played the final week just like Tyler Higbee did while others rested, and he had some production. And then in the playoff game, tied for the team lead in targets, caught the touchdown, and being 5,800, pretty reasonable price to organically make things work.
Yeah. Jahan Dotson, sure, he had the touchdown last week.
His first career Philly touchdown.
Why not?
It took him 19 weeks.
He had 11 targets in Week 18 because he was the only guy on the field. But not the point. Let's take these off. Let's talk about Saquon because really it's Saquon at 11-2 or bust.
Yeah.
He's got 4 out of 5 of the last, of his last games. Got 100+ yards. He's got multiple touchdowns, 15 touchdowns on the year. He hasn't scored recently, so positive regression.
Got 2 touchdowns in 5 games. Those touchdowns both came in the same game, so he's due. But also, the time he last played against the Rams was a showdown slate that he went for 49 fantasy points, 300 all-purpose yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he 10 yards a touch. The thing is, I just hope he doesn't get vultured, but he's in a smash spot once again. The Rams have been playing much better defensively, so it's not just like you just plug him in and play, at least on the main slate. I don't know if you can get away from him on this one, but yeah, he's just been as good as advertised this year.
I think it's impossible to get away from him, but that's just me in general. So we'll just have to talk about that here in a second, but I am going to give it away and talk about, we're going to talk about our game script, but our must plays, obviously. Saquon Barkley was my must play.
Puka's mine.
Puka's yours. Both of those guys are going in all my lines anyways. So
that basically easily makes your decision for how you're building if you play both of them.
Yeah.
Really up top, there's only 3 guys that are 10,000 and above. But fading 2 of them, I'm sorry, there's 4 guys, but picking 2 of them basically means you can't really get to the 3rd guy unless you go really, really cheap.
Right.
And there's really nobody down low that you can confidently plug in. Like Jordan Whittington got some snaps last week. He got 11, but it was also a blowout. So probably most of them came later, and at the expense of Cooper Kupp being only at 55%, which he's been above. What is that? His lowest snap total was 71% since he returned from IR, other than the Week 8 game, his first game back. So, not confident playing him. Everybody in the 2,000 to 3,000 range, gross.
Yeah.
Jahan Dotson, sure, you caught a touchdown, good for you.
So gross.
I'm not playing DeMarcus Robinson for 4,000. It's all tough. I mean, the highest valued player that is not minimum price that just is projecting for half a point is Saquon Barkley. That's the highest value on the slate. And then after that, it's Jalen Hurts. After that, it's a kicker. So basically, there's no value once again. I kind of treat this similar to how we did the Philly-Minnesota game, which that was kind of another decision of, hey, it's a high point total. Do you want to go a 5 and eat a 0 or a really low score? Or do you want to build a more balanced build? And I ended up going last guy in, going with the Rams D. Smashed, obviously going for 23 fantasy points. It just depends on if this is a game where you think it's more balanced. And if it is, there's certain spots you can kind of make you feel pretty solid with the line.
Yeah. Okay, well, my fade is going to be Jalen Hurts. You got to pick some way to fade, and that's the guy I can't get to.
Yeah, I don't fault you for that one whatsoever.
Your fade?
It's just tough. Cooper Kupp is my fade. I can't pay $7,400 for somebody getting 3 targets a game.
So sad, man.
That said, he's talented enough to, if they're playing from behind, all of a sudden jump back into a 10-plus target workload.
Why not?
He's going to be low owned if you do that. But the way that I'm building on this slate, it's really hard in that range to get there.
For sure. And then my contrarian play, is Devontae Smith because you took my other contrarian play in the
Hey,
Rams.
we can do the same.
Rams defense.
I'm running it back one more time. Again, that's what helped went over 5x of my investment on the Showdown, just getting crazy production.
Yeah.
4 straight games, they've allowed less than 10 points, not fantasy points, 10 points, which I know 2 of those teams were non-playoff teams. It doesn't matter when it's the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really hard to one time allow less than 10 points. Obviously, the Week 18 game, they were resting. That I'm not counting that one. But the other ones, basically knocking San Fran out of the playoffs in a 12-6 game. The Jets were on the road. That was a game where they had nothing to play for, but they had been playing at least better offensively.
Right.
And then Arizona, must-win game for them, knocked them out of the playoffs. And then obviously a 14-win team where they were a home neutral site dog. They ended up still shutting out Minnesota essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I can't get away from them if they're only 3,600.
All right. Well, let's build some lines.
All right.
I'm going to let you go first. I wonder if we have the same line, honestly, because
Do you got 200 remainder?
I do. So I'm expecting us
Is
to have the
Puka
same.
your captain?
He is.
All right, we have the same line.
All right.
Yeah, Puka is my captain. I'm also playing Stafford to pair him. And then I'm going to plug in Saquon. I am going to plug in both tight ends in Dallas Goedert and Tyler Higbee. And last person in is a team, and it is the Los Angeles Rams.
So we have the same line, which makes me feel great.
Yeah. Again, we don't talk lines before we get on shows like this.
Wait, we didn't do our game script.
We didn't.
We didn't tell these people.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't tell them. We have to tell these people about our game script.
We're both on the Rams.
Yeah.
Picking them outright. They're a 6-point dog. It doesn't matter. One coming off a dominant win. The other one really struggling against a banged-up Green Bay team. And they basically won because of field position more so than them earning the win and keeping it. So the Rams are just playing much better in recent weeks, and I think they're the hotter team. We even said before when we did our postseason predictions that if the Rams were to have to play Philly instead because of a Washington upset, which ended up happening, we would both pick the Eagles, and neither of us are swayed from that right now.
We both picked the Rams, yes. You said Eagles, but yes. I agree with you. Yeah, it's just I think the Rams are the hardest team to get out as like a non-dominant team. Because, of course, if you look at the AFC, you have KC, you have Baltimore, you have Buffalo. Those teams are hard to get out.
Yep.
But I'm not as confident in Houston being able to make an upset. And then in the NFC, I'm really not confident in anybody making an upset except for the Rams. I could see them upsetting everybody. Yep. It's one of those things. So I'm definitely on that side. We talked about this before, and on this slate, it's a raw point slate in my personal opinion. You had it 2017. That's a 37-point total. It's very low. I had it 24-20. That's 44 points. So yeah,
I think this is a matchup where both defenses show up, and you're just gonna get some raw points, and whoever is able to score whatever touchdowns are available. That said, it could be a great kicker slate if the wind holds up, and it's just like we both get to the red zone but can't punch it in.
Exactly.
I think is it John Carty?
Yes.
The Rams kicker. He's had multiple games with 3+ field goals and stuff, and last week I don't know if I would have got first, but I would have gotten top 5 of all Showdown and thousands of people.
Josh Carty. Yeah.
Yeah. I picked the wrong kicker. I didn't want to go a 5-1 build in favor of the Rams. Should have though. So Reichard also had 10 fantasy points a game and upside like that, but they were down so much so early that they were like, no, we're going for 2. We're not even kicking the extra point.
It's like, all right, cool.
Cool.
Yep.
But yeah, so
he was my captain in one of my lines. In one of them, yeah. So,
yeah,
but at the same time, I wasn't that worried because we did have so much Rams anyways, so it worked out. But yeah, he was my captain on one of my lines, so that line was a dud, unfortunately. But yeah, so this is my first build. Is there another way you want to build this? Because we did the same thing, and I mean, we're on the same page exactly. So,
do you have a single guy below 4,000 that you even want to flirt with putting in a line?
It was Jordan Whittington.
Whittington? Okay, well, let's do a build with the $1,200 Jordan Whittington.
Okay.
Were you also wanting to put Ramsey in this one?
No, let's not.
Okay. So this is a higher scoring game. Do you still want an expensive captain?
one of Saquon or Puka is
That's my
kind
only
of
captain
the only way I'm going. So I think that's where I want to be, but I don't
So
care which one. We can try both.
Let's say Saquon on this
We
one.
try both. I'm gonna put Puka in every line.
Yeah, can't get away from him.
I'm probably gonna put Stafford with him.
Okay.
62. I mean, you could go kicker and what does Devontae Smith get you? 44 is tight end. All right, perfect.
Perfect.
All right, didn't even have to work that hard on that one. And I'm still on the same side. As you can see, we're playing the Rams as we want to. Let's do it again. Let's put Puka up here, and let's see who we can swap.
Gets another $600.
Yeah, 400,
Okay.
Which would be kicker.
That would be kicker instead of Higbee. Is that Cardi?
Yeah.
It's fine.
So yeah, you could do that.
If you went down,
Go away from Devontae.
Go down to, nobody else is exactly 9,000, right? It's just you're all the way up or all the way down.
Yeah.
Kyron.
Oh yeah, let's try to get Kyron in there.
Okay. We'll put Kyron.
That makes it tough.
Don't have enough for the Rams D, unfortunately.
32. So Kobe Parkinson is who I'd rather get to. Kenneth Gainwell randomly goes in the game.
Yeah, he's had some snaps.
Yeah.
The only other thought is going even lower down at captain.
Okay.
Again, I'd rather not do that, but
yeah, I agree.
If you did go to either Kyron or Stafford, that would be enough for Rams D.
Okay. If we're going to play this, I think the correlation with Kyron makes more sense. Okay. So let's do that, but I'm not happy about it, just to let you know.
This is probably, I don't know if we're going to play another line since we just went 6 for 6, the exact same.
Yeah.
But
fair.
We're just giving other looks for guys. But yeah, that organically fits. Usually it's always good to, correlate a defense with the running back. And Kyron, I think, is the one that'll get squeezed, and he's the cheapest guy. Ownership, again, RotoWire is kind of wonky with their Showdown ownerships, but right now he is lower owned than every single guy priced above him, and he's even below both kickers right now. Which I don't anticipate that being a thing, but I bet you it'll be in the low 30s, which good solid leverage. That's exactly where he was this past week when the one decision that we were making in the Rams-Vikings game was you wanted to go up to Justin, and I was like, I'm going to just trust the Kyron floor.
Yeah.
I ended up being on the right side of things, but you've also had a lot of
Justin didn't play bad though. I mean, it was he just didn't score a touchdown. Kyron got that early touchdown on the pass, and I was like, okay,
touchdown was
super helpful. But yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same exact page. So I'm good on this slate. Perfect. If you want to go over to the most, and as we said before, we are going to be doing this in a full video, and then we're going to be splitting these into individual videos.
Yeah, check out the Saturday ones, and we once again the main slate that we did break down. That was a whole lot of fun because the prices are juicy on this main slate. So
we're going to go into the Buffalo Bills versus Baltimore Ravens slate on the other side. Baltimore is going to be the away team. I think it's a -1 to Buffalo, right? Is that?
It's -1 to Baltimore now.
To Baltimore, okay.
They're going to probably flip or become it's basically a pick 'em.
Yeah. I agree with that
these
number.
are the two MVP favorites. Obviously, Lamar has flipped to being a big favorite because he was first team All-Pro. Josh Allen was second team. They're not going to give the MVP to somebody second team All-Pro. So that's kind of what sealed it in our eyes. But again, both teams kind of riding hot. And we are actually on different sides of this game.
Yes, we are. And I'm excited about this game. Like I said, Zay Flowers. I did want to do an update real quick. We don't expect Zay to play. He has an issue with his knee still, and he did not practice Wednesday. So that kind of tells us that it's a long shot to say the least. I'm not necessarily on Zay in this game, but it also helps me boost these other guys that are around him. So let's take him off. Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and then Nelson Aguilar are the main benefactors of Zay not playing. Rashad Bateman has been the number one receiver. Mark Andrews the number one tight end. But Isaiah Likely gets a boost in snap count when Zay is out because of the fact that he is a pass-catching tight end. So, but yeah.
And also Isaiah Likely had a season high 80% of the snaps, and that's what we called out. We weren't saying, oh yeah, they're just going to immediately put in somebody to run cardio 80% of the time. They're going to give their second or third best pass catcher, depending on how you view
right, for sure.
Zay Flowers. like he's been really solid with limited usage this year, but we've seen upside from him. He was week one, our first ever Showdown breakdown. That was our tournament play, and he smashed, absolutely smashed. And so we're going to kind of run it back to the well that hopefully this is just a closer game to where maybe he flirts with a 7 to 10 target kind of night, because that's what he was trending towards against Pittsburgh. They just got up so early. But yeah, 353 this past week. I think he led the team in receiving yards.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really need to throw the ball. Yeah, him 5,600. I'm hoping that people are like, ooh, I don't want to pay 56 for a tight end too, and we just swoop right in and just benefit off of that.
Fair. The tight end one on the other side, though, Mark Andrews, 6,600. Reasonable play, good in the red zone, has 11 touchdowns. So he actually broke his streak of touchdowns
we knew
this
that
last
regression
week.
was coming. He had 10 touchdowns in 11 games, and we were underweight on him this past week. Ended up being on the right side of that. But again, it was one of those things where it's not like we were right and he had a bad game. They just didn't need to use him.
Yes.
The thing is, he has somewhat of a lower floor than we've seen in years past, but he's just one of the best red zone threats, especially the best red zone threat on the team. So 6,600, very reasonable. I think he's the only guy really in that range, other than Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
That I'd really be interested in confidently.
I think the weather hurts Mark Andrews, funny
You
enough.
think?
Because I think they'll, like, the red zone opportunities, they're going to be giving the ball to Derrick Henry as much as possible. Rashad Bateman, 7,400, another guy that we've got to talk about just because he has the boom upside. He isn't necessarily just consistent, but he does have certain weeks where he goes for 2 touchdowns. He's had 5 touchdowns in 5 weeks. He's got 10 touchdowns on the year. So you have to talk about him, but he's not necessarily going to be consistent, and especially in a weather game like this. So I don't know where to go with him, but like how much I want to play of him, but he's expensive.
74 is tough to get to. I think it just kind of comes down to, are you playing all 3 of the guys up top?
Right.
And obviously the name of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Josh Allen, all of them, I don't even really have to state a case because of how good they are. But you can't, if you do go all 3,
Can't
you
get
can't
any of the
afford
guys in
any
the
of the
middle.
guys in the middle. It
Right.
has to be stars and scrubs. So if you're able to fade one comfortably, that's the way you're going to, I feel, be different, because I feel like everybody's just going to go, all 3 or 2 of the 3, and one of them being the captain.
Right, for sure. Nelson Aguilar, $2,000. He's at least going to be on the field.
Yep.
And Tylen Wallace actually was on the field too. Want to shout him out. What was his number? He had a big snap count.
Yeah, he had 51% of the snaps.
51, okay.
This past week. Again,
So-
he's kind of running routes, but also they were playing from ahead.
Right. So I think he probably
but
got in for that.
If he has 2 targets and catches 1 for 21 yards like he did last week, that's going to smash for only being $1,000, and you're trying to just find ways to get salary.
Yep. Let's go ahead and talk about Derrick Henry and Justice Hill real quick. Derrick Henry, you have to get him as much as possible. In their first, 186 yards, 138, 147, 162 in the last 4 weeks. I mean, he's just been great. So I don't know why you get away from him here. Guy that, we're going to be talking about the top 3. I don't know that I think he might be the easiest one to say I'm going to for sure be getting to him, especially in the weather and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, I mean, it just really gets to him. Last time these 2 teams played, he was the biggest winner of it all. He had 39 fantasy points, over 200 all-purpose yards. But Justice Hill also had nearly 100 yards in that same game.
Yep.
Him being 4,800, I brought up on the main
like
slate
him.
that nobody is going to play him, especially on the main slate because of how many good running backs are and the fact that you don't need that cheap.
right.
Well, on Showdown slates where you kind of need to get different a little bit and stuff like that, he's right in the middle of like the defenses, the kickers, and the cheap, wide receivers that you got to decide between.
Yep.
I don't think anybody's going to play him, but he's got the same damn matchup that Derrick Henry does. So I think last week, remember, he did miss a couple games due to concussion, and Derrick Henry took all the workload instead of them
Anybody
keep on
else.
splitting. He came back his last game, had 39% of the snaps, which is basically what he had been. He's been between 35 and 50% the entire season. So, yeah, 4,800. He's a pass catching back.
Yep.
If he can find a way to get to 8 points, plus if there's weather and there's just more of an opportunity for check downs and stuff like that, I think he's a great tournament play.
I mean, if you look at the last times that he's been on the field, 4 targets, 5 targets, 6 targets. I can get behind that all day at 4,800. Plus, the rushing is an option. He does break off big plays too, so he's definitely a guy that I want to get to. I don't know how many lines I'll be making though, so if he doesn't make it into a line, it wouldn't surprise me. But he's a guy that if I get one of him in 3 lines, I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's showing less than 10% ownership,
Mm-hmm.
so it speaks for itself with the opportunities that he possibly can have.
Yep, and then going to the other side, Josh Allen is your other $11,000 guy. Talking about his pass catchers, you got to go to Khalil Shakur, Amari Cooper, Dalton Kincaid, and Keon Coleman. I'll put all of them on there. Matt Collins and Dawson Knox, and then don't forget about Curtis Samuel. I ran out of spots, so basically it's a giant shit show.
They're one of the few teams that just straight up run 5 receivers pretty evenly.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, all of them play like 70% or between 30 and 70% of the snaps, and never really kind of phases that. Even though Khalil Shakir has been the most consistent one, he's not a red zone threat because he only has 4 touchdowns on the year, but he's just 8 to 10 floor,
Right.
which is solid. But rarely is he exceeding that floor to get a ceiling game. Against the Rams in that big old total game, the 86-point total, he had 100 yards after a 50-yard touchdown. But other than that, he's not really breaking 15 fantasy points. I mean, he had that one time. He had a 19-point game.
3 times this year.
Basically, when he scored, he has, but very rarely has he scored. So him being 8,000, it's a weird range to try to afford that. But again, he's one easy click if you just price didn't matter and you just wanted the most consistent Bills pass catcher. But him being 8,000, that's the thing that makes it tougher. On the main slate, completely on board with getting to him on Josh Allen builds. But 8,000, I don't even know if you need to go that high.
Fair. And then going to the other guys, Amari Cooper, I'm not sure what to do with him. Dalton Kincaid at 5,800, at least I know he's more consistent. Keon Coleman is a red zone threat, so at 3,600, I am actually excited to play him somewhat. And then Dawson Knox is 2,800. Matt Collins 3,200. It's just a lot of guys, a lot of names, but the ones I really want to play are these 3, probably, if I am going to be getting to anybody.
Right, and I think Shakir will probably be the most popular bill,
Mm-hmm.
but I actually have no idea how the ownership's going to distribute between the Amari Coopers, the Keon Colemans, the Curtis Samuels, even.
Right.
Obviously, Matt Collins is my least interest, even though he has the most consistent snap share. He's the one that does the cardio the most.
Right.
At least Samuel, when he is a wide receiver 5 in terms of snap share, he still has the boom plays we saw last week with the 50-yard touchdown, and he also has the underneath stuff as well. Him being 2,400, back-to-back games with double-digit points, so pretty solid output from him. Like you said, Keon Coleman, red zone threat. He had a couple of red zone targets last week, just didn't convert. Only had 1 catch. But he was still working his way back from injury as well. He did have 61% of the snaps, and they made it a priority to get him on the field in Week 18 when other people were resting. He had 97% of the snaps in Week 18, 90% in Week 17.
Ridiculous.
So that being 3,600
Sure.
and being a possible red zone threat, I think I'm on board with you on that one.
Cool. And then let me clear this. Let's talk about the running back. We did, James Cook has been good, but not getting the touches. So he makes me the most nervous out of all the guys at the top of the pricing, just because of the touch issues.
Yeah, it's just, what are we doing with the Ray Davis implying that he's out? Does that mean that James Cook is going to have 23 opportunities like he did last week and have 100 yards and a touchdown?
Right.
Or is it going to be, hey,
Split.
he's probably going to have 16 to 18, and then Ty Johnson will have 10 and possible catching, because he's had multiple games where he's had the receiving upside and downfield upside. What was it a couple weeks back? Yeah, the Detroit game where he had multiple 30-yard receptions.
Yes.
And it was just like, oh, okay. And the week before that, 55 yards receiving. And so he's just been the running back 3. But if he's the running back 2, then he has a similar workload. So last week in a blowout, had 11 touches. Very efficient with those numbers. 70 yards all-purpose on those 11 touches. 4,400. That's pretty. Would you say that even though we did talk about our enjoyment of Justice Hill, say Ray Davis is out.
I'm higher on Ty Johnson. Yeah.
There we go.
And we'll talk about him more in a minute, because we're about to get into some of our other stuff. I want you to tell the people the wrong game script for everyone.
Game script. So maybe I might bring this point total down a little bit because of the impending weather. Depending, it's still wait and see. I just can't get over the way that Baltimore beat them down, and I know it is hard to beat teams twice. But the way they did, it was 35-10. That was the lowest fantasy output the entire season of Josh Allen, second lowest of James Cook, respectively. And they just dominated them from literally the first play where Derrick Henry took off for a 75-yard touchdown. If it is a weather game, I think that just benefits Baltimore even more because it means that Lamar doesn't have to do the, a bunch of things in his hands, and again, he's trying to break in a playoff narrative himself.
Right.
So Josh Allen's the one that has really nothing to lose in that regard because he has been the one playing well. He just can't get over Mahomes. Whereas Lamar has basically, if he's a double-digit touchdown favorite, he's played awesome. But when he is a close game, a lot of times he has left a lot on the field to be desired. So he has more to play for. But if it is cold weather, that just means, hey, you know what? Instead of me trying to force things, I'm just going to give the ball to Derrick Henry 30 times, and that's how we're going to get to the AFC Championship.
Fine. So I'm on the other side. I'm actually I have something for you. You can see it now on the screen. I'm picking Buffalo. The score is 21-20. So 1 point to the Buffalo Bills. I think that whoever has the ball last is going to win the game, and I think that Buffalo gets the ball at the end of the game and walks it down and scores. Last meeting was in September, the game that you're talking about. That was September 29th.
Yep.
Buffalo, and we talked about this on the other show when we picked our playoff and went through it, but I'll reiterate if you haven't seen that yet. Buffalo has not lost a game at home this whole year. They did play at Baltimore when they lost that game earlier in the year. Baltimore has choked in the playoff in recent years, and they haven't shown that they can't do that. And then it's hard to beat the same team twice. I know that we talked about it, especially, though, in my personal opinion, when you get embarrassed, you always play so much harder. So I just lean that way. Talking about builds, Allen is greater than Lamar to me.
Okay.
That's how I feel. And then you need 2 out of 3, in my personal opinion. Allen, Henry, Lamar could do 3 out of 3, but I just lean Allen and Henry more than I do with Lamar here. That's just my personal thoughts. I think that that's how the game just goes. If you look at my must play and your must play, they're my 2 favorite guys, Josh Allen and Derrick Henry. So I picked Josh Allen because
I don't think you can get off Derrick Henry in this slate, and I think you got to play at least one of the quarterbacks.
Right.
So if Josh Allen's your preference, he also is $400 cheaper. So I don't mind that at all. And honestly,
sorry, I was going to say the reasoning was I like the pass catchers. They're cheaper. Right. And it makes more sense if it's better. Correlate. Yeah, easier to correlate.
And I know Lamar, is known as one of the best dual threat quarterbacks of all time. He's already exceeded like a Mike Vick or anything that you want to bring up. At least fantasy-wise this year, he hasn't really had the rushing touchdown upside. I think he only has 4 on the year. And on top of that, he's only had 1 game since, week 5, that he has at least 10 rushing attempts, which maybe that'll increase because he had 15 last week. But Josh Allen has been the one to have the rushing upside. So he's been one where, he had a stretch where he had a touchdown, 3 touchdowns, two touchdowns, and then a touchdown all on the ground. And that also doesn't include the passing upside. And they live and die by him.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. He has no Derrick Henry to lean on. So, yeah, I'm completely on board with him being the preference over Lamar if you had to pick between one.
I picked obviously Buffalo to win. I don't know if you've watched Riley Leonard recently in these games, and obviously in the college football playoff. Like Josh Allen and Riley Leonard reminds me of that will to win, jumps over people. Like he's going to do it. And no matter what, he will make it happen. And so I could see a Josh Allen rushing touchdown where he's dragging 2 people. It wouldn't surprise me. And that's why I want that guy over Lamar, because Lamar has a lot of other people to lean on, while Josh has no one to lean on. He's just going to go do it himself. And I'm fine with that. That's why he's my must-play over a Lamar. Fades, we had the same fade. which is good.
Yeah.
It's Amari Cooper. We're both off of Amari.
It's just hard.
It is. And I'll actually pull up his stuff so everybody can see it.
And while you're doing that, I just want to bring up. I didn't have it in front of me, but I pulled it up just now. So, want to read some fantasy game logs of Josh Allen in the playoffs if you want to show how much his upside has been and if it correlates with his regular season success.
Right, for sure.
And this is all DraftKings scoring. 27 fantasy points, 42, 41, 28, 18 was a dud, 33.5, 30, 25.5.
And how many of those games did he win? What about that dud?
Other than the Kansas City one and then the Cincinnati one, which obviously that was his worst one.
Okay, that was the 18.
Yeah.
Okay, so he had one dud and it was in a loss. Not like they were blowing them out. That was more of my question.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm okay with all those numbers. They make me feel good.
And that's in what is that, since 2021? So
yeah.
About going on a 4-year sample size. And then Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, give me that one too so I can see just I pulled Amari Cooper up, but we were talking obviously about something else.
No, you're good. So Lamar Jackson, same kind of deal, and obviously there was a couple postseasons that he missed.
Right.
But a Tennessee game where they were a 2-touchdown favorite and they lost as the 1 seed. And he had 28.8 fantasy points, but that was because he ran for 100 yards because they were down 21.
Right.
And he's playing catch up. Then he had 8.9. Then he had a 39 when they were a 2-touchdown favorite against Houston.
Okay.
Then 20.6. Okay. But he had 3 turnovers in that game. And then last week against the Steelers, 23.1. Solid.
So what games did he lose out of those games you just told me?
So he lost the Kansas City game.
Which was how many?
20.6.
20.6. Okay.
Which I don't know if that'll get it done on this slate.
No.
8.9 was in a loss against Buffalo.
Okay.
That was a very infamous one. And then I don't even want to bring up 2020 and 2019.
Yeah,
that's just like ages ago. But essentially, again, playoff woes has been his name. And other than one where he was playing catch-up and had the 100-yard bonus rushing, and that was obviously before Derrick Henry, that was the only one where in a loss he actually paid off.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so yeah, I'm completely okay with my pick then. Josh Allen. I was going to talk about Amari Cooper. He's our fade. This is why, if you look at the last 4 weeks, he has 3 targets, 2 targets, and 0 targets. So I just can't get behind someone that is not getting the ball, and he has to score a touchdown to be worth anything. He's 6,400. It's a weird spot, especially if you want to go all 3 up top. So let's just get away from him and let's go build some lines. I want to hear your line first because I have a feeling.
Real quick, our tournament plays.
Oh, yeah.
Isaiah Likely is mine, which at the same time, if Zay Flowers gets ruled out before Sunday, I don't know how high owned he's going to be actually. Maybe that ends up not being tournament play territory, but I did want to point out, if this is a lower total game than you think and weather does play more of an impact, both defenses are $38,000 and $4,000. And we both have interest on those defenses on the main slate. So if you wanted to do that either of those guys makes a lot of sense as well.
Fair. My tournament play is Keon Coleman because you have to pick between that range, and then Ty Johnson are both guys I want to get to if Ray Davis is out. So if Ray Davis isn't out, I don't know that I want to go to Ty Johnson. But if he is out, like I'm expecting, concussion protocol.
But if Ray Davis is in, he's 1,400.
Oh,
and he's been the RB2. So that just opens up a whole lot for me, honestly. If he's in, he's might be my most confident, just cheap guy.
Yeah, fair.
And I don't expect limitations if he's playing from a concussion.
Right.
But usually you kind of expect that people are going to be out the following week from that. So if that's the case, like we've talked about, we made our case for Ty Johnson earlier. But yeah, I like both of those.
Okay, well then you are building a line. Let's go.
I'm building first?
Yeah, you're
All
up.
right. So my first build is going to include all 3. I'm not making a decision on 2 of the 3. I know.
Are you captaining?
Yes.
Which one?
So I'm going to captain Derrick Henry.
Okay.
Put both quarterbacks in.
Okay. Here we go.
And this is a little uncomfortable down low, but Isaiah Likely, my tournament play at 5,600 would be in. And then my last 2 guys in would be Keon Coleman.
Okay.
And then Tylan Wallace.
All right.
And again, I'm building with anticipation that Zay Flowers will be out.
I mean, I get it. If you're going to play all 3, why not? Baltimore's been really good. It's not like I'm calling them out for that. It's just we've seen the woes from Lamar Jackson during the playoffs. So I will build mine. Mine will be a 2 out of 3. And so Lamar Jackson will be coming on my line. I'm going to do it in that way.
Okay.
And I'm just going to read because I know that it's pretty much the same exact thing. I did have Josh at cap, though. I had Josh at cap and Derrick Henry. Not Tylen. And cap.
I know what you built.
You have it. Yeah. Isaiah Likely. Where is... Oh, wait. He's already in there. Oh, okay. Who am I missing? Yeah. I put Khalil Shakur.
Mm-hmm.
And then, $4,400 Ty Johnson.
Yeah. As soon as I went off that, and I was like, I think he's going to go Josh at captain. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's what he did.
Yeah. Pretty easy. Pretty easy to get to. Both of my tournament plays. And then your tournament play. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen, Khalil Shakur, the most consistent of the receivers. Derrick Henry, you have to have him. You could even put him at captain. Wouldn't kill me. Or you could pull my leg. It's fine. It's not that big a deal.
I'm also intrigued by what are your thoughts on an Isaiah Likely captain?
Let's try it. I don't care.
Is that viable?
You better put all three in.
No.
You have to put all
obviously
three.
I'm doing that. To afford that, he'd be 84.
Oh yeah. He's under.
Yeah, I'd never recommend really cheap guys down low if you're going to go a mid-tier captain, or you have to afford all the guys that are important. So.
Right. But then it gets uncomfortable. Curtis Samuel's, I'm not against Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, so that's what I had was I put in Curtis Samuel, and then the last guy in was you pick a kicker or either running back. But those were kind of my thoughts on if you were trying to do one of these kinds of builds, like mid-tier builds. I think both Mark Andrews and Likely are captain viable because of the ability to afford all three up top.
What does that do price-wise?
He's 99.
35? Damn.
That's not enough.
100.
Unfortunately.
All right, so they did that on purpose.
But if you went down to Nelson Aguilar instead of Curtis Samuel, you could afford Keon.
Which
that would be
I'd be more comfortable with, probably.
That'd be a 4-2 build.
Yeah, which is fine. I don't think that I do not think there's a 5-1 that I'm going to be comfortable with, but I think 4-2 on either side or 3-3 is going to be something I definitely will get behind. So I'm not against either of those builds. It's a fun slate, man. It's a really great slate. I might make more than one line in this slate just because you could either go 3 up top, you could go 2 up top, you could go with a mid-priced captain, you could go, a lot of different ways. So this might be a slate where I get a couple more lines than just a single entry, but it's a very fun slate in my personal opinion.
And a lot of times with high totals or like really high spend ups that you want to get to, you always have to ask this question. When we asked this in our Saturday video for the Detroit-Washington game because the total's so high. Can you eat a 0 and go min? Is that even an option to you?
Yeah.
Or because of all the randomness, you think you'd rather just kind of play the balance?
But do you need to eat a 0 when you have $1,000 Tylan Wallace?
That's what I'm asking.
So who would your 0 be is the question. Like, I don't know what RotoWire has because they...
Let's see. RotoWire has Devontae Walker as having a catch, basically, for 2 yards.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either. But, again, doing that and affording one of those big 3 up top and then also affording the other 2, is it worth doing that? Or do you just want to make a decision on one being faded or doing a mid-tier captain?
Well, let's just throw someone in. I don't even care, really.
Yeah, just throw it.
Keaton Mitchell.
Sure.
He's $200.
He's healthy and active last week. But, we're just...
whatever.
We're spitballing.
It's $2,100. Is it worth putting one of these guys a captain? That's the real question to me. I just did this and then put in Isaiah Likely. Mark Andrews is 100 short.
It's fine. I don't mind going up to because you can afford Isaiah Likely and Ty Johnson.
Yeah,
in that regard.
It's fine with me.
Or just leave salary on
Keon
and keep Keon in because probably he more naturally builds with Josh Allen.
Fair, but I don't hate this. This is fun. I mean, it's a fun slate. So, get as much exposure to all these guys as you can. Play the 10 cent, 20 max, and make a whole bunch of lines.
And there's a lot of free contests this week, too.
There are,
so there's almost a free contest, and there's 2 in the main, and I know there was one with the first showdown we did. I don't know if I've checked on the others, but, it's playoff season, so they like to do giveaways and stuff like that and free opportunities. There's a lot of quarter contests out there. You see our bankroll starting to build up a little bit, so Yeah, just make sure that you're looking into those things. Yeah, there's a free one for
KC versus Houston. There's a free one for Washington, Detroit. There's a free one for every game.
every game. There's
That's
a free
fun.
one. So you need to be playing every single game. I don't care if you invest money or not, but there's a free contest. So they're trying to give you their money. So you might as well just try to take it.
Yep, absolutely. But let me stop sharing and we will get on out of here. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. This video will be broken up into both slates. So I know you're actually at the end of this. So if you're like, well, I meant to watch the Philly game and only saw this one game, it's on a different video. We broke it into two. We also have a full video if you want to watch the whole thing. So just watch whatever you want. We're going to have a whole bunch of stuff. And then we'll get into, we also have a main slate. So watch that too.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Please do all the things and watch all these contests. Again, we like to play everything. We sprinkle all around and we hand build. For the time being, we don't have an optimizer. We will one day be able to provide that as an add-on and interact that way. And that's going to completely change and reshape how we do these kinds of videos because we'll be talking more so about exposures than we will about hand building and what have you. And we won't be posting lines. We'll just be posting either exposures or leans or stands that we do because we like to take stands more than others. We don't just like, hey, I'm going to be underweight, but I'm still going to be 30% to this guy.
If you've watched this show, I will take 0% of the chalkiest running back, and I do not care.
A lot of the
do
time.
not care.
Yeah, we talked about last week where Bucky Irving was the chalk of the chalk, and he was over 50% owned, and we were like, there's too many good running backs to be 50% owned, so we faded him, and he did okay, but he didn't do enough. So all those things we think about, but again, we're closing out our first year doing this, and it's been a whole lot of fun doing, and we're just excited for the off-season content. Obviously, national championship is this weekend or this Monday, and we have a divisional round of football. It's the peak football season, and then once it's done, we're going to be going right into draft content, reviewing how we did this past year, and then what's to come, free agency, all that stuff. We're going to cover it all, and then we're going to try to do some entertaining ones as well.
Absolutely. So we really appreciate y'all hanging out, and stay tuned because we got a lot going on, and we appreciate y'all just being part of the community, helping us build it. We're slowly, we're getting bigger, so it's very exciting. So we will see you on the next one.